Welcome to the ANEW Insight Podcast, empowering and inspiring your journey to optimal health. Hosted by Dr. Supatra Tovar, clinical psychologist, registered dietitian, fitness expert, and author of Deprogram Diet Culture. Rethink your relationship with food, heal your mind, and live a diet-free life. I follow my guests' journey to optimal health, providing you with the keys to unlock your own wellness path. Tune in and evolve with us. Hello and welcome to the ANEW Insight Podcast. I am Dr. Supatra Tovar, and I am thrilled to have Food Sleuth Radio host and registered dietitian Melinda Hemmelgarn with us today. Melinda, thank you so much for joining me.
It is my pleasure.
I am so excited. We are show swapping.
We are.
I was on Food Sleuth Radio, which was just a joy. And we did not want that conversation to end. And so we decided we were going to continue it. Right, Melinda?
That's right. Yeah, it was so wonderful to share our different trajectories of our careers.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, absolutely. So I'm going to read a little bit about Melinda, and then I'm going to drill her with some amazing questions. So hang on to your hats. Melinda Hemmelgarn, known as the Food Sleuth, is a registered dietitian and investigative nutritionist with over 30 years of experience in clinical, academic, and public health nutrition. She hosts Food Sleuth Radio, as I said before, a nationally syndicated program that encourages listeners to think beyond their plates and explore the connections between food, health, and agriculture. Her work emphasizes critical thinking about food systems and media literacy to uncover food truth. Melinda, welcome.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm really delighted to be with you.
Yes, we had such an amazing conversation. She interviewed me about my book, Deprogram Diet Culture, and all of the concepts behind that. And we were really kind of batting back and forth good food and bad food. So we were like, you know what, we need more of a conversation on this. But before we get into that, I would love to know about your inspiration, both in how you became a registered dietitian and why, and then what motivated you to create Food Sleuth Radio.
Well, I became a dietitian quite by accident. I was going to be an art history major, and then I was going to work in textile design. And I ended up going to Florida State University, and textile design somehow planted me in the College of Home Economics. And the rule at the College of Home Economics is that you have to take one class in all of the different disciplines offered within that college. And so I took child development, I took home economics, and then I took a nutrition class. And I still remember the day I sat in that classroom and learned that you could actually heal disease and prevent disease with food. And I have never stopped loving this profession. And typical of the dietetics trajectory, you do a dietetic internship, which I did at the New York Hospital in New York City. And then I became a dietitian, and it's a long story how I got here, but I live in the Midwest now because I fell in love. And I moved here, and my first job was at the Veterans Hospital. So typically, when you become a dietitian, you start out doing clinical work, if that's your path, the clinical route. And I saw a lot of illness that could have been prevented. I also saw a lot of poverty. And I realized then that I wanted to work farther upstream, and I wanted to work in prevention. And I live in Columbia, Missouri, which is a college town. So I went back to school and got my master's in human nutrition and food systems, and then got a job as a nutrition specialist at the University of Missouri Extension, Nutritional Sciences Extension. And I was a state nutrition specialist. And I answered questions from all over the state. And I heard a lecture from, do you know the dietitian Doris Derillian?
I don't.
So she's based in California. She's older than me. She's hilarious. And I heard her present. She was laughing about the size of the recommended cookie according to USDA diet plans versus the size of the cookie you get at the mall. And she said,
Mm-hmm.
you know, people really don't get their nutrition information from dietitians. They get it from the media.
Yes.
And that opened the door. And I thought, if that's where people get nutrition information, then I am going to be in the media. And I started,
Oh, wow.
yeah, so I started a nutrition communication center at the University of Missouri and worked with reporters from really all over the country, uh, talking about issues of the day. And at the time, the big issue, it still is a problem, but we've got many more to deal with. But at the time, it was childhood obesity. So
Mm-hmm.
I had a wonderful team of media people that I worked with
Mm-hmm.
media and print, and I ended up writing a newspaper column for 25 years weekly. I just wanted to reach many, many people through the media. And I've been in love with the media really ever since as a tool for good, a platform for good.
Yes. Yes. Well, I mean, I do relate to you a lot. I think when you go into your clinical dietetics rotation, you do see all aspects of health and disease, and you do see how it could have been prevented. People would always make fun of us dietitians in the cafeteria having salad at lunch. And we were like, well, we were just up on the floors. So we
Right,
really do want to eat well
right.
so we don't end up on the floor. But yeah, I totally relate to that. And I think it's so important that we have the truth in nutrition out there, but we don't really see that all the time. And I really want you to define food truth because I think so many people are so confused about nutrition. We're in a time right now, especially when you connect it to diet culture, that there's so many misconceptions about nutrition, about what we should be eating, what we shouldn't be eating. It is so confusing when you look at your media feed on your phone or you're watching television. You encourage people to think beyond their plates. What is food truth and what does that mean for consumers?
I look at food truth as pulling back curtains to find out more about the food that we are putting in our bodies. I have a great
Mhm.
reverence for food, and I think that probably came from having immigrant grandparents who knew hunger.
Mhm.
And so it all comes back to the professions that we end up doing. But it's very important that the quality of the food that we put in our body serves us so that we can
Mhm.
be fully functioning and live our best life, reach our fullest potential
Mhm.
through good food. And
Mhm.
unfortunately, there is a lot of confusion because there's a lot of money to be made. And I've always seen myself as a consumer advocate and trying to help people pull back that curtain. What do those labels really mean? Natural, organic, non GMO. Um, gosh, the numbers of labels have just ballooned during my career, you
Mhm.
know? So
Mhm.
there's that. And also the way we get our nutrition information has changed. So I remember working with kids looking at television advertisements. Well, that was 30 years ago. Now kids have personal screens that work to get to them. So there are
Mhm.
lots of tools that the food industry uses to get us to buy foods that are not good for us and not good
Mhm.
for the planet. And
Right.
the idea of thinking beyond our plate in the United States, I think our cultural narrative is very much focused on the individual, right? What food is good
Mhm.
for me? What's good for
Mhm.
me? Where
Mhm.
I really prefer to look at food not only for a personal priority for health, but what about that food that we're eating? How was it grown? Who grew
Mhm.
it? Who produced it? What were their conditions like?
Right.
What about if you eat meat? How were those animals raised? Does it make a difference? Does it make a
Yes.
difference if the vegetables that you have on your plate, and we're always talking about eating more fruits and vegetables, but yes, they're good for you, but how are they produced? Are there
Mhm.
pesticide residues on them? Well,
Mhm.
we can think about those residues in terms of our health, but I'd like to help people think beyond our plates and think, well, what is it like for the farm worker in the field who's being exposed to those chemical sprays? So it's this much bigger picture than simply
Yes.
how many calories, how many grams of protein, how much carbohydrate. We've all done those calculations. And it's not that they're not important, but it's also important to think above and beyond ourselves. There is a
Mhm.
future and a large body of children out there, and I'd like to think that they have clean water and air to breathe, healthy food to eat, and a planet actually that's livable. And that's all related to the food
Yes.
system.
Yes. Well, can you drop a couple food truth bombs on us?
I absolutely can.
What's the latest in what you're discovering out there? You've mentioned big agriculture, you've mentioned the processed food, commercialization of food. What are some truths out there that you just absolutely know that people should be aware of?
I'm going to start with a really big truth, and that is that everything is connected.
Mhm.
Everything is connected. So we're going to start our conversation there.
Okay.
Now, if we want to tease down some finer truths, one of the best ways a person can find food truth is to read the ingredient label.
Right.
That, I mean, there's a lot of language and a lot of numbers. There's the nutrition
Mhm.
facts panel. It's meant to help us choose food, but really check that ingredient label. That is going to get you closer to the truth. And then there are these
Mhm.
other labels on foods, and they're mind boggling, right? There's
Mhm.
natural, which,
Mhm.
by the
Which,
way, means nothing, little to nothing.
yes. Yes.
And then there's certified organic. There's a USDA organic seal. And I will tell you that I was at the university for 15 years. And then I went on to do just work independently. And I
Yes.
had the opportunity to do a Kellogg fellowship that really changed my life because it helped me get to the truth more, because it introduced me to the importance of agriculture. So the word
Mm.
sustainable, the word regenerative, those don't have legal definitions. Anybody can
Mm.
be sustainable. Anybody can be a regenerative farmer. But the organic system has a, a legal definition.
Yes.
So it is no small thing to choose an organic product. You are really making an investment in the way that food is produced. I had the
Right.
opportunity to serve on two organic farming boards, one based in California, the Organic Farming Research Foundation, and the other in the Midwest, the Midwest Organic Sustainable Education Service. In
Mhm.
addition to my patients being some of my best teachers, farmers have been equally important in my education. They helped me
Right.
see food truth too, because they
Mm.
helped me see the nuances to growing good food and to protecting the soil and the water, and how all of those things are connected to get to
Mm.
truth and to get to good health.
Right. Right. So, ignoring the natural, regenerative, sustainable, but really you can put some faith into the organic label.
Absolutely, you can. And I know that there are lots of messages that might make us think otherwise. If there's a headline, it's sort of like one bad apple spoils the whole bunch. Don't let that
Mhm.
one apple do that. There are
Mhm.
always going to be players who are trying to cheat a system. No matter what system it is, there are going to be cheaters. They are the
Right.
few and far between, however. People are
Mhm.
basically good. And that is the truth with organic farming as well. There is a group, a
Mhm.
real organic project, and people can go online and learn about how a group of organic farmers and advocates have really come together to keep the integrity in that organic seal. I'm also a
Yes.
member of the Beyond Pesticides. It's a nonprofit organization based in DC, but we do work nationally. Beyond Pesticides also works to hold that organic seal, to make sure that it has integrity, and to also educate people about why messages that we may receive, oh, don't worry about those residues on your food. Absolutely, we should be concerned about those residues. Many of them are
Right.
endocrine disruptors. We don't want them
Yes.
in our bodies.
No, we don't.
So there are organizations working to keep that label, to have that label keep its integrity.
Yes.
We're kind of in a crazy place right now with a new administration coming in, and it is going to require that those of us who care about the food system deeply and the
Yes.
environment and climate hold leadership accountable. So that's sort of where we are today.
It is where we are today. And you had mentioned lower income people, of course, been living in food deserts, having little access. What would you tell them or advise them to do to try to get more organic food into their lives?
So there is an African American woman, Fannie Lou Hamer, and there's a great quote. She said, basically, we can't free ourselves if we can't feed ourselves. And if you
Yeah.
think about chains and loss of dignity, I can't think of anything worse than living in poverty, having to be dependent upon, say, a food bank system or a food pantry. That's no way to get your food. It's a
Yes.
shame that in the richest
Mm.
nation in the world, we have to have people who are living in poverty by no choice of their own. And
Yes.
then there are the food industry, the fast food industry loves to go into impoverished neighborhoods and sell their highly processed, ultra processed foods that we know hurt people.
Hmm.
So there's very little choice. We hear so much about choice. There are illusions of choice,
Yeah.
but really individuals have a very hard time making healthy choices when there are no healthy choices available to them.
Hmm.
So what can we do? First of all, we can have compassion, and we can
Yes.
work towards policies that take people out of poverty so that they have the freedom to go to the supermarket or go to the farmer's market and buy what they want that is culturally appropriate for them to eat.
Yes.
So you think, well, you're a dietitian. Why are you talking about living wage legislation? I'm talking about living wage legislation because we want to make sure that our patients, our clients, are able to buy the food that they want to eat, the healthy food that we recommend, Supatra, right?
Right. Right.
So individuals working together, if there's an opportunity to work in a community garden.
Yes, I was just going to say they're so powerful. They have a ton in Los Angeles that I think are just so empowering. You can grow your own organic food. It may take a little effort, but when you think about the cost savings of growing your own organic produce, it's unparalleled.
That's right. And you can grow the kinds of foods that are culturally appropriate to you that may not be available to you in a supermarket. So if you look at big urban areas, Los Angeles, absolutely. Look at Detroit, right? Look
Yeah.
at these empty lots that were converted to community gardens. There is a
Yes.
strong and powerful network of real food warriors who are
Yes.
working to bridge that horrific and unjust gap where people want to
Yes.
eat well. Everybody wants their children to be healthy and to feed them the kind of food we recommend. We have to make it
Absolutely.
available to them, whether it's having a living wage and a job with justice, or if it's having access to a farmer's market or your own community garden. I'll tell you a story about community garden. I live in a neighborhood just a mile from campus. People use lawn chemicals because they've been sold into thinking that having a perfect lawn is worth putting poison on their grass. Poisons drift, and they have killed some of the vegetables that I try to grow in my garden. So I got a community garden plot this year,
Oh,
and I
wow.
grew okra for the first time.
Yay.
And do you know that by eating okra all summer long, I was able to drop my cholesterol and my blood sugar dropped by 10 points. Food
Yay.
as medicine, and we have to make that
Absolutely.
medicine available to everyone.
Yes. Oh my gosh. Preach. I'm with you all the way. Now, let's actually get into good food versus bad food. This is something that we were batting back and forth on your program. And in my clinical practice, it is very important that my clients adopt a food neutral mindset because they come in to my practice with that very distinct morality around food. This food's good, it's got the halo, this food is the devil. And what that actually ends up doing is creating a lot of psychological battle within yourself. You know, you're trying to stay within the good food, but if you go to the bad food, you're going to go into a guilt and shame spiral. And actually removing that label of good and bad helps people to then actually stop binging. But it's a really hard concept for a lot in the medical industry or in dietetics because we really do assign a health value to food. So I want you to kind of navigate through that. Good food versus bad food. Does labeling it good or bad impact people's relationship with food, particularly people with eating disorders? And what's your thoughts on maybe even shifting the narrative to healthful and less healthful? How do you navigate that as an RD?
This is such an important conversation that we're having, especially what I love about you is that we are both dietitians. You have gone into working with individuals with eating disorders and dysfunctional eating. Mm-hmm. And I don't work in that world anymore. I work with the interface or the intersections of agriculture, environment, climate, and health. So we look at this differently. And what I love about having this conversation with you is that we can explore all of these different nuances in the language. I guess I want to back up and I want to ask, first of all, how did foods get a good or bad connotation? Like, who owns that message? Like, how did somebody get to feel badly about themselves for eating a food that was labeled bad by who?
Right. That is a really nuanced question. And I don't know if I have the answer to that. I think it goes back to an apple a day keeps the doctor away. That's kind of, I think, where things like that started. And really, maybe not until we had some more ultra processed food that we really got into the bad food label, because I don't think people in the 40s or 50s, well, maybe earlier, 30s and 40s and before, they were eating more what we would term natural foods or whole foods. It really wasn't until food processing came into play. But what do you think?
Well, it's interesting. I'm listening to you think back to the 1940s, 1950s, whatever. So I'm really blessed in that my mother never dieted. Mm-hmm. So I did not grow up with good food, bad food. I grew up with a grandmother who saw me eating at her table and who said, "It does my heart good to see you eat so well." So that's totally different from growing up in a home where somebody is totally focused on their weight. And I did have aunts who dieted. They were constantly dieting. And, you know, I could see them like tell themselves, don't eat that, eat this. And they would have these horrible tasting diet sodas. But I was very blessed that I didn't have that. And it's sort of a take-home message, right? For anybody who might be listening with kids, don't be dieting like ever. It's a 4-letter word.
Please. Yes, please.
But the whole good food, bad food, I got to tell you a story. I promised you in an email we had that I would tell you the story of Carlo Petrini, who is the father of slow food. And it's really where I started thinking of food as good or not. And so Carlo Petrini, he's Italian. There's great Italian food. If you want to eat good food, go to Italy.
Seriously, I ate my way through that country and it was amazing.
It's fabulous to love food like that, right? And to have an appetite and a functioning digestive system that can handle food. That is no small thing. So
Yes.
embrace the appetite, embrace good food. But he was concerned about a McDonald's coming into a piazza where, Italians don't eat that kind of garbage, right? So he started
Hmm.
the slow food movement, but he gave an example of having an eating experience in California. He was
Hmm.
speaking at a conference and he told a story where he went to this beautiful place. California, it can be gorgeous.
Yes,
And
it is.
and you can imagine sitting at this long table, white tablecloth, delicious food complemented with wine. He said it
Mm.
looked beautiful. It tasted wonderful. But he said the individuals who were working in the fields to harvest that food were treated like dirt, like slaves.
Yeah.
And he said that is not good food. And
Mm.
he was the one who helped me think beyond the calories, the protein, the fat, the carbohydrate, the good fat, the bad fat, the sugar, blah blah blah. He helped me see that there was more to good food than whether it was ultra processed or not. I mean, ultra processed food really, I think that, what is there, like a new report every month that comes out showing it hurts our physical health as well as our mental health. And it's
Yes.
cheap and it's easy for
Hmm.
institutions to purchase it because there's a lot of money behind it. And
Totally.
yeah, even on the ag side, what kinds of foods are our tax dollars subsidizing? We're not
Oh, yeah.
we're not putting money behind the kinds of foods that are recommended in the dietary guidelines, for example.
No. Yes.
So anyway, that's what I was thinking about good food, bad food, and we live in different worlds and we apply our skills to different audiences. But I'm going to ask you: do you think that that is a strategy for working with individuals who do have disordered eating habits or patterns to help them think away from the self and more towards the earth?
I think when people are really struggling with disordered eating or eating disorders, it's a very myopic view to begin with. And then the more they work on it, the more they open up that worldview. That's why I think opening up, as opposed to shutting down and saying you can't eat this or you can eat this, is the beginning of that. Because of all the misinformation that they've received from diet culture, because of all the messaging, we needed to just break down the barriers and the classifications and just look at food. Then I have them delve into their body. And that is integral to them opening up the idea about what food is doing to my body. And when they really listen to their body and say they've had something on the less healthful side, when they really are mindful, they can feel how that food feels in the body and they can compare it with something that's on the more healthful side. And when they really realize how much they're fueled by the healthful side of foods and how much they're actually harmed by the less healthful side of foods, that's when that conversation can open up. Where is this food coming from? If we love that our body feels fueled, energized, happy, we reduce our depression, we reduce our anxiety, our metabolic numbers come into the kind of normal range. That's when I think that they can really start to see, oh, if I even go beyond this, I can feel even more amazing. Oh, I'm starting to see kind of the little guy behind the curtain that's
Right.
fueling the wizard.
Yeah.
Who's the wizard? Oh, okay. I see the wizard is big agriculture. Oh, I see how they're treating these animals. Oh, I see how they're treating these farm workers. I do think it really does start with the internal process. What is this food doing for my body? And then really opening up to looking beyond that. And I really do hope that people are listening to your radio station. I hope that people are really trying to uncover the truth because that's my whole goal. Like, I really want to create a diet culture revolution, an anti diet culture revolution that really does look at these corporations that are promoting things that are good for their bottom line, but are not good for our bottom line. So we are out of time for this half. Oh my gosh, we have so much more to talk about because we want to talk about marketing. We want to talk about media literacy. We want to keep going on, but we're going to come back for the second half of this amazing episode with Melinda Hemmelgarn. She is Food Sleuth Radio's host. She is an RD and she is a pioneer and an advocate for our health. Thank you so much for joining me, Melinda, for this half. And everyone else, please join us for the second half.
Thank you.
Thanks for tuning into the ANEW Insight Podcast. Please remember, the contents shared on this podcast is for entertainment purposes only and does not constitute medical advice. You can find us anywhere podcasts are streaming, on YouTube at my.anew.insight and at anew-insight.com under the ANEW Insight Podcast tab. And follow us on our socials at my.anew.insight on Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, and Threads for more updates. Tune in next time and evolve with us.